First, in Kanpur, a couple situation happens, and they say that you have to balance the number of arrests. Balance what? Balance between the community, irrespective of the fact who was guilty and who was innocent. Balance, because this is intellectually a dishonest thing. I would rather go as an honorable ex-SSP than to continue as a servile and a supine SSP. Then, as additional DG Law and Order, a special post was created, UP-Nepal border force, where there was no work, and that was regarded as, in euphemism or some kind of what can I say, that a deep freeze or Siberia, where every inconvenient officer was transferred to the UP-Nepal border force, no work, and you stay in the office and no responsibilities either. For 4 years, I was there, nominated to the United Nations, not relieved to join the United Nations. So these things come and these things go, but you have the steel in you. No politician can have the better of you. You may also have heard, I would like, because since I am retired, I do not quote. There's a politician who's no more. I would not like to take names of politicians who's no more, but a very well-known politicians. And Netaji said that Vikram Singh wanted to put us behind bars under the quota. Look, I have not done anything that is anything illegitimate or immoral ever. And to put people of those profile, the highest profile in the country, behind bars in quota. But that was all in the papers, Barka. And if you remember, this is something around the year 2002, when the new government in Uttar Pradesh came, and these two, one deceased politician, and Netaji said that I wanted to put them behind bars under the quota. So these are the kind of arm twisting and blackmail tactics that happen. And then for in any force, there would be people, microscopic minority, who are willing to carry out illegitimate orders of the political masters for short-term gains.
So these are very, very strong words coming from Vikram Singh. And let me actually now bring in Miran. Would you have the same view, or has your experience been somewhat more pleasurable to recall? And that doesn't mean, of course, that Mr. Vikram Singh is not a proud police officer, as I'm sure you are, ma'am. But when you look back at the issues of police reform as well as political pressure, you heard what Mr. Singh said. Would you echo him? Would you reinforce that? Or would you have a different experience?
So I would say Maharashtra is better administered. They are not that blatant in their political interference, but they are on their way to the same road, to the same destination which UP has reached. I would say in posting of SHO up to Commissioner of Police, politicians decide. We cannot deny that. But in Maharashtra, they won't sit on your head and say that you register this particular case or that. It does happen, but that is an exception. All SPs, all commissioners of police and SHOs have to be on the better side of politicians who have tasted blood. There is no doubt about that. But I would also blame the citizens for not taking interest in policing, for letting the politicians get away with posting bad officers, posting out good officers, and not making any noise, not protesting at all. So if you have an open field, it's human nature. You are bound to capture it, and they have captured police like any other organ of the executive.
So it's distressing to actually hear both of you say this, but now that you're retired, I know that you can speak more honestly. And actually, I don't know, Devika's obviously having bandwidth issues, but I'm going to try and take all of you through some of the key findings of this report by the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. And this, actually gives you a sense, as I was saying earlier, let's start with the first slide. This gives you a sense of how little the compliance has been. So, for example, this is on the state security commissions. All of you, our guests, can also see this on our screen. Only 10 of 28 states have actually said that there should be a submission of an annual report. Only 2 of our 28 states have made the recommendation of the State Security Commission binding. In other words, you set up a State Security Commission, but if you do not make its recommendations binding, then it becomes virtually a toothless body. I'll take a little bit of another slide, and that will kind of also give us a sense of how little has actually changed. And as we've been saying, CHRI has found that no state in India has fully actioned the Supreme Court order from 14 years ago. This is on the tenure and selection of the Director General of Police. And Mr. Vikram Singh, I know you will want to look at this very, very carefully. The CHRI report says that only 6 of 28 states provides a minimum tenure of 2 years irrespective of superannuation, right? Because the Supreme Court had said that if we give the DGPs a minimum guaranteed 2-year tenure, then that would stop state governments from being able to transfer them at will. 7 out of 28 states specify shortlisting by the UPSC, and only 10 out of 28 specify grounds for premature removal that are clear and limited to the 4 conditions laid down by the courts. In other words, the remaining 12 do not. Now, one of the key instruments of political power, as we know, is transfers, and in particular, it is the transfer of the top officer, which is the DGP. I want to take this back to Miran and Vikram Singh. Miran, please respond to the statistics that we're seeing on our screen.
So, would you respond?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am, go ahead. Yes.
Barkha, you want to, police reforms want to take power out of the hands of, you think they would do that? They would resist they would resist it tooth and nail, which they are doing. So Supreme Court has to monitor it, and people have to talk of something else beyond Bollywood and be on roads. If we can be on roads for farmers' agitation, why can't be on road for a clean, healthy, positive policing system? Because people are quiet. To expect politicians to give away their powers, it's asking for too much. It's against human nature.
But you make this very interesting point about why the public is not more invested. Because Vikram Singh, जब गाली देने की बात आती है, तो पुलिस वाले को सब गाली देते हैं. अरे पुलिस तो ऐसी है, पुलिस तो वैसी है. But Miran makes a very important point. Farmers are marching. There is an outrage in this country over the tragic death of an actor, Sushant Singh. और तब से और कुछ मीडिया में डिस्कस ही नहीं हो रहा. Why is the public not out on the streets demanding an independent police force? I want you in particular to respond to this 2-year non-transferable tenure that the Supreme Court wanted for a top officer, such as the rank you held of DGP. Please respond to what the CHRI study shows us.
Barkha, I was the DGP for 2 years.
Yes, sir. Okay, I think Mr. Singh is having a bit of bandwidth issues, and as he fixes his shot, I'm going to just get Bahriz back into the conversation. Bahriz, as a lawyer, you went to the Supreme Court because you said your father was tortured by the police. Can you talk a little bit about that? And Mr. Singh, if you can hear me, just please let me know when you're back with us. Maybe we'll try and get you to reconnect. Bahriz, go ahead. Yeah.
I actually approached the Bombay High Court in April 2020. Firstly, I started off by writing a letter to the Honorable Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court, and I sought help considering the alarming condition that happened, unfortunately, with my family. But as rightly pointed out by our co-panelists, why are people not out there? It just goes by saying, when majority is quiet, common decency takes a backseat. And that is exactly what has happened in this case. If I have to just go back and just look back at the Prakash Singh judgment or any of these judgments, if anyone reads those judgments, there's one thing which is quite interesting, is the kind of response that is given by the Union of India and all the states for that matter. And what is funny, I'll tell you, is that in all those responses, they admit that there is a need for reform. They also exercise that particular option wherein they say we need it. But unfortunately, despite saying in so many words, there is no implementation whatsoever. As far as the incident that took place with me was concerned, we are lawyers. And it's not just me. There are several other lawyers in Maharashtra itself who have been brutally beaten. I mean, I'm sure the journalists have done their job very well, wherein the journalists themselves have faced the brutal side of the police. And despite everything, despite there being so much of awareness, I just feel today a common man, he has no option whatsoever. The reason why we need something like a police complaint authority is somewhat getting diluted day by day.
Can I ask you, let me just check if Vikram Singh can hear us, sir. You're back. Welcome back. You can hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm going to come to you in a second. I just want Bahriz to complete. Bahriz, what happened with your father? What is your allegation? Can you just describe it at length? What did your father do? Why was he in a position where you say that the police attacked him? What happened exactly?
So firstly, he was not the only one who was attacked. I was attacked myself. I have been at the receiving end. My elder brother has been at the receiving end. my younger brother and my mother as well. What happened basically on the fateful day, we own a bakery in Goregaon West, Mumbai. And right outside the bakery, there were certain hawkers who sit on the streets, obviously even during the times of Corona, who were hawking on the streets. Every evening, it was a routine. At roughly around 5:36 p.m., there would be a van of policemen who would come. They used to be accompanied by so many men who were dressed in civil dress, so you couldn't make out who they were. These men, they would routinely come and they would beat the hell out of these people who were sitting on the streets. Unfortunately, on that day, my father happened to arrive at the bakery at that particular point in time. When he saw these people raining batons on the hawkers on the streets, he simply questioned the guy as to who are you and why are you beating him? Because just 2 days prior to that incident, there was a dead body lying on the streets that no one had paid heed to. Upon questioning that man, supposedly a police officer from the crime branch, who was not in his uniform, he raised his lathi on my father and he asked him, how the hell you asked me anything? Seeing this entire spectacle, my brother, myself, we went outside just to ask as to what was wrong. Looking at the huddle that was formed, tens and twelves of policemen just started coming over there. And while we were just talking normally, they started raining batons on all of us. Next thing that happens is they ask us, you have to shut your shop, you have to do this, and you have to get out from here. You can't do anything whatsoever. What is interesting is what happens thereafter. When I go to the Goregaon police station to file my complaint against this what happened, I come to know that an FIR has been registered rather against me because I have apparently disobeyed the police orders.
Okay, so this is how you ended up going to court, and I do want to talk about police excesses and police training in a moment from now, but I want to go back to the issue of political pressure and how every political party basically resists setting the police free. Vikram Singh very passionately spoke about his experience, and Mr. Singh, I think you would acknowledge, as you did, that this has happened across parties. Now, I want you to respond to what we were talking about when we briefly lost the line to you, the DGP rank and why it is not a guaranteed 2-year tenure as the Supreme Court wanted it to be for all senior ranking police officers. Please go ahead, sir. You saw the statistic that we have from the CHRI report.
I saw the statistics, yes.
Yes, please go ahead. And I'll pull it up again also as you talk about it. Go ahead.
With your permission, Mr. Irani, I'm so very shocked to hear about the sorry state of affairs, and I'm extremely sorry as an ex-policeman. My apologies for whatever it's worth, with folded hands to you, to your father, and to your brother. Now, Barka, coming to the fact, I have been told by many politicians a DG has to be made into a daily wager if the politics has to survive, if the illegitimate instructions have to be carried out. And it is here where the trickery comes in. A DG, even if he's for 2 years, there is still some maneuverability with the political masters that they can maneuver and ease out the DGP, as has happened in several states. In my case, Barkha, may I shed light that I was almost on the verge of retirement, and on a matter of principle, I was made to go to the Home Guards department just about 4 months before my retirement. I had an option of succumbing to the political pressure or taking a principled stand. I took the principled stand, and I have no regrets whatsoever. But the fact remains, I have spoken to many politicians, and now when I speak to them, all cutting across all party lines, I ask them, why don't you get the police reforms? You'll become immortal. And you know, the standard answer is, Vikram Singh ji, जिस दिन पुलिस सुधार लागू हो जाएंगे, हम राजनीति छोड़ देंगे, हम भी कहीं पान की दुकान लगा लेंगे.